What's up and welcome back to MoAn Inc. If you guys are new here, then hello! My name's Erica and it is a pleasure to have you joining me today on the channel. Because for today's video, as you can see from the title, we are going to be having a little listening party and discussing Epic the Musical's Ocean Saga. But before we can get into that, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you know every single time I post in the future. And now that you've so kindly done that, let's get to the video. First things first, I do just want to put a little disclaimer here to let you guys know that in case this is the first video you are tuning into when it comes to my little Epic series, this is not to sit here and to shit on Epic the Musical. I am not here to analyze it like the classicist that I am, because first and foremost, I am a classicist. I have a degree in classics. I have also just written a book about the Odyssey. It's called The Odyssey Effect: How Homer's Epic Poem Shaped the World. So I am not here to analyze this in this way. In fact, what I'm here to do is to highlight the brilliant adaptation that it is. I'm going to be going through a lot of the differences between the ancient epic that survives from the ancient world and comparing it to epic, but not in the sense to say that one is better than the other. They are different, as retellings and readaptations should be. This is the exercise that I was doing as I was writing my book, where I tracked how the Odyssey and the characters of the Odyssey changed in each era of history. And that's not to say that one is better than the other. It's not to say that you must read the Odyssey as opposed to listening to things like Epic the Musical. It is to say the point of a retelling or an adaptation is to take something that was originally written, originally come up with in a different time period, and to make it uniquely your own. And I think that Epic is a fantastic example of that. So just bear that in mind as we work through the songs, as we work through, not just this saga, but the other sagas for Epic the Musical, that I am going to be pulling out the differences with the intention of highlighting why they are different and acknowledging the differences as a positive and really pulling that out so that we can all learn something about how to do adaptations, but also why this one seems to work so well. Okay, so I always want to say that at the start of these episodes. I do not want anything to be misconstrued as I am talking. So with that being said, let's get into the first song, which is Storm.
We're taking too much damage to survive. We'll beat this storm. At this rate, we won't make it out alive. Help to move.
Okay, so the reason why I wanted to play this song is not because I actually have any sort of classical notes to really add to the lyrics, but I did print off the lyrics before doing these so that I could sit here and actually read. I do this in every single one of my videos just so that I can sit here and read the lyrics so I'm not misinterpreting anything, because obviously as we listen to music, sometimes we come up with our own version of the lyrics. And when I printed these off and I was looking at them before recording, I did not realize that the character of Elpenor was in Epic the Musical. Now, I got my lyrics from Genius, I'm pretty sure. I'll include the link anyways in the description below so you guys can tell me if that was correct or not. But that line, Captain Look, Elpenor says that. So who is Elpenor, right? I mentioned Elpenor in, not by name, but I mentioned Elpenor in the previous talk about the Polyphemus saga. I spoke about how there was a guy that comes back, he's killed because all the men, this is not a spoiler, but all of Odysseus's men die in order for Odysseus to get home. And there is one guy who dies and he comes back in the form of a ghost and he's like, hey, you guys gotta go back and bury my body because otherwise I'm gonna be stuck in this like limbo, this ancient limbo. It's not called limbo in the ancient world, but still, there's ancient idea of limbo. And so they then sail back and they honor Elpenor. Elpenor is that guy, okay? So the story of Elpenor from the Odyssey is that actually when they're on Circe's island, they're there for a really long time. And when they're on Circe's island, Elpenor actually falls off the roof of Circe's home. So not everything in these ancient sources is like, look at this grand thing that happened, or I got killed by this incredible hero. Elpenor falls off of the roof and he dies. And the kind of sad, but I guess also kind of funny part of this is that then when Odysseus and his men leave Circe's island, they don't do a head check count. They don't do one of those. And so they're not aware that Elpenor's not with them. And that's why Elpenor's ghost is like, hello, did you not realize I'm not on the boat? It's because I'm dead on Circe's island. You need to you need to come back and bury me. And they're like, oh, yeah, we should go and do that. And the idea that Elpenor sings something in Epic the Musical, I was like, oh hi, you get a role. I love this for you. Because as we'll see later, he's not a part of the Cersei Saga. Well, it's not, is it called the Cersei Saga? Is that what it's called? Well, Cersei's little episode. Is it called? Yeah, it is. It's called Cersei Saga. Wonderful. So because of that, though, because he's not in the Cersei Saga, I thought that he was just not going to be mentioned at all. He's not an important character anyways. But I like the idea that still Rivera-herrans was like, no, Elpenor should say something. And it really shows you, as I say in all of these episodes, the depth of understanding that Rivera-herrans has for the ancient texts. So that is the only thing I wanted to say about Storm, was the fact that Elpenor says something. And I wouldn't have known if I didn't look up the lyrics that I'm like, hi, I love seeing you here. Song number 2 is Luck.
Please don't tell me you're about to do what I think you'll do.
You've heard the legends of the island in the sky. This proves they're true.
So as we know from the previous song, they are looking for Aeolus's island. This is now an island in the sky. This is some magical thing at the end of the previous song, though I didn't include it. They say they're going to shoot for the sky. They're like getting all their harpoons together. They're going to shoot to the sky. And in the ancient epic, so in the Odyssey, Aeolus's island is not like some weird floating thing. They just kind of sail to it. This again is a really wonderful spot where you can add in adaptations what you want Aeolus's island to look like. It doesn't have to just be a regular island. This is not a really, how do I phrase this? It's not that it's not a really famous episode, it is, but it's not an iconic episode. There is an iconic element of this, which we will talk about as we work through the musical, because that is still incorporated into Rivera-herrans' take on the Odyssey, which means, and I always say this, that you kind of have to keep the iconic things of a story the same when you want to do adaptations, when you want to go back to a story and retell it. You've got to keep those iconic moments the same, but you also need to find where the room is for you to talk to your modern audience, for you to put your own spin on it. And this idea of Aeolus's island kind of being this like floating, it's almost like Olympus from Disney's Hercules, which is like this floating thing in the clouds. That's kind of what this is giving. I like it. I think it's really cool. I think it's a fun thing to do. But I did just want to highlight it, that there is this kind of like, how do we get up there? We should shoot for the sky. We should come up to Aeolus's island because it's high up there. It's somewhere in the clouds. In the ancient world, they just roll right up to, just, bring the boat right up to the shore and hang out and hop off and go and hang out with Aeolus. So yeah, let's keep going.
We're in the home of the wind god.
We don't know for sure.
How many floating islands have you seen before?
None.
This is the home of the wind god.
And what's your plan?
I'm gonna climb to the top and ask him for a hand.
You could be caught off guard and lose your life, or piss off this god and infuse us with strife. Don't forget how dangerous the gods are.
Have faith, friend, we've come this far.
So this part, I love that Eurylochus is just playing. He's just playing the rational side of somebody's brain. That's it. Eurylochus. I was always brought up, because I went to school in the UK, I was always brought up to say Eurylochus. It's not wrong if you say Eurylochus. Honestly, just pick whichever one you want. I will never stray probably from Eurylochus. Maybe if I say Eurylochus enough. Anyways, not the point of this. What I'm saying is that I love that he's kind of allowed to have that ancient mindset, which is you can be caught off guard, you can lose your life, or piss off this god and infuse us with strife, right? So this is very much an ancient mentality, which is you can't just waltz up into either a god's temple or up to a god and just expect it to go well. Like, there are a number of things that could objectively go wrong. And not only that, don't forget how dangerous the gods are. Okay, so we have this voice, even though we just, in the previous cycle, saw Odysseus yell at Athena and be really, really rude to her. Even though Odysseus is doing that, we still have characters that are allowed to kind of, show off the ancient mindset. Even though Odysseus is much more, he becomes much more of a modern character, a modern structure within this musical, which again, I think is really good, and I think is why it was so successful. We still have characters around Odysseus that are like, hey, let's not forget this thing, and Eurylochus is the perfect example of that.
Yes, but how much longer till your luck runs out? How much longer till the show goes south? How much longer till we all fall down? You rely on wind and people die on it. Whoa.
I still believe in goodness. I still believe that we could be kind. Lead from the heart and see what starts.
And what will we do when it tears us apart?
Where is this coming from, my friend?
Logic, that's where.
I just don't wanna see another life end. You're like the brother I could never do without.
And suddenly you doubt that I could figure this out.
Captain, how much longer till your luck runs out? How much longer till the show goes south? How much longer till we all fall down? You rely on wish and people die on it. Whoa, how much longer till the snake breaks free? How much longer till your great day sees? How much longer till your strength takes leave? You rely on wish and people die on it. Whoa.
Thank you for the concern, but brother, I can assure you, our journey is almost done. I understand that we're tired, I understand that we're phased, but don't forget how much we've already faced. I took 600 men to war and not one of them died there.
No, that's not true, okay? This is a really classic example of Odysseus actually bigging himself up more than necessary. He doesn't do this in the Odyssey. He doesn't say, here, I took all of my men to war and not one of them died at Troy and they all died afterwards. Oops, my bee. That's absolutely not what happens in the Odyssey either. This is something that's thrown into this narrative. Again, I presume, I would love to talk to rivera-herrans about this. I presume this is kind of there to show not only Odysseus kind of inflating his own ego to be like, look at how great I am, you should trust me, kind of a thing, but also not necessarily just inflating his ego, but as a way for us to kind of see that unreliable narrator. Because even logically, if we're listening to this and we don't know the ancient epic, it's virtually impossible to bring an entire army of people to a war and have not one of them be killed unless you're sitting in the camps, not actually in active fighting, right? That's just unheard of. And so that's what I think this line is doing. I think it's in there not so that we can go, oh, wow, he's a great leader, because he isn't, right? Every single joke about Odysseus is that he's objectively a really bad leader. How do you manage to bring all of your men to war and then be the only survivor when actually a number of them did survive Troy, but they just didn't survive the journey home? That's not as dangerous as war. Odysseus, like how did you manage that? And so that's sort of what I think this is calling to. And in case you want to know, there is actually very early on in the Iliad, there is one of the fight scenes that we have. I don't describe many fight scenes here on the channel, so I did do a whole Iliad series. I have a whole Iliad playlist going chapter by chapter summarizing what happens, just so that you guys, if you're reading the Iliad for the first time, you kind of have, you know, episodes that you can follow along with to show you it really isn't a difficult book. It's really easy. It's really fun. It obviously has different levels of analysis, but just the narrative you can absolutely do outside of a classroom and read by yourself. You're much smarter than you think you are. And the books are not as hard as you probably assume that they are. Anyways, in that series, I don't really go into a lot of those fight scenes because that's where I think the Iliad loses a lot of people, because there are loads of names, loads of deaths, all of that kind of stuff. But very early on, there is one fight scene where Odysseus is on the battlefield and one of his men called Lucas, I love that Lucas is in the Trojan War, he ends up accidentally getting shot. And that's for a number of different reasons that happen within this sort of fray on the battlefield. And so Lucas gets shot, and Odysseus is so mad because he's like, hey, that's one of my men, that he turns around and he kills that guy that killed Lucas. So even just based off of the first little bit of the Iliad, we know at least one of them is killed. It's not Odysseus' fault. That's just how, like, what happens at war. But I did want to highlight that line because I think it's more so in there to show us more about his character, in case you guys heard that and you impose the idea that Odysseus didn't have any of his men killed during the Trojan War onto the ancient world. I don't think that's what this is doing, and I don't think the purpose of it is that. I think it's actually more so a, not tongue-in-cheek, but I think it's a really clever play on Odysseus' character and on the ancient mindset, the idea that there was a war in place, and what that says about Odysseus' character, that he would say something like this. Anyways, let's keep listening. The third song is Keep Your Friends Close.
Great wind god Aeolus, I don't know if you know this, but our path to home is blocked by an impenetrable storm. I ask for your assistance so we at last can go the distance. Can you cast the perfect winds for us and aid our journey home?
Ha ha ha! I am the wind, twisting and turning. I give the fire enough to stay burning.
I need to out myself right now because when I have been listening to this, I had no idea that this voice was supposed to be Aeolus at all until I printed off these lyrics so that I could sit here and I could read the lyrics. I thought that this was just one of the winds because the lyric is, ha ha ha, I am the wind twisting and turning. Now, Aeolus is the king of the winds, right? So he's not the god of the winds, he's the king of the winds. He is a god, that's not to say he isn't, but his title is king of the winds, right? So he basically has control of the winds. If you didn't know, there are loads of winds in the ancient Greek world. We actually get a number of them personified in the Iliad, which I love. There's even at one point, Zephyrus is having Zephyrus who's the west wind, he's having a little party with one of the other winds, and the goddess of the rainbows and also messages? That's not a word. Does the messenger side of things for Hera comes down and like interrupts this party of the winds, and she's kind of like, can I come in? So the goddess of rainbows is like interrupting the wind gods party, and they're like, hey, come join us. I love the gods in the Iliad. But anyways, all of that is to say there are a number of different winds, and Aeolus is the guy who's in charge of all of them, right? They all kind of go home to Aeolus's island, and then they're all sort of sent out as need be. Now, when it comes to Aeolus himself, I have always pictured him as this like scary guy, not this like cute little voice, right? I thought this cute little voice was like, it could have been Zephyrus, for all I know, one of the other many winds, because every direction, north, south, east, west, they all have names, and even the like southwest wind has a name, the northwest wind, they all have names, and you do at some point need to know them for Greek mythology. We're not going to get into that today. So I thought one of these voices was one of the winds. Ha ha, I am the wind. I was like, cool, I don't know who you are, but that's fine. I didn't realize it was Aeolus. There you go. So I have no notes on it. I just wanted to out myself and say I've been listening to this for like 7 or 8 months now, assuming that this was just like a random wind and not Aeolus, which is so dumb. But anyways.
Let's play a game.
A game?
That's what I'm serving, and if you win, you will get what you're yearning.
Deal.
Take a look right here at this bag. It has the winds of the storm all trapped. All you gotta do is not open this bag.
Sounds too easy, what's the catch?
Ha ha ha.
So this bag of winds is, as I said, the iconic part of the Aeolus episode. So not where Aeolus lives, but the bag of winds. This is something that, as I said when I was researching my book and I was looking at different versions of the Odyssey, again, always stays the same. One of the best adaptations of the Odyssey, and I will die on this hill, is the SpongeBob SquarePants film. The original one, not the one that like just came out like a month ago or 2 months ago, whenever it did. The original one from the early 2000s. That is a fantastic take on the Odyssey. I have a whole section of my book. I'm so surprised that my publishers let me leave it in, where I'm just analyzing why it's brilliant. I will also do a video on that in the coming weeks because I feel so strongly about this. But the point of me saying this is that even the SpongeBob SquarePants movie included the bag of winds. It's genius, okay? So this is an iconic moment where you have to always find what to keep in your adaptation from the original that people obviously loved, especially when you have an original that is loved and that is really appreciated and that people cling on to because, you know, it just becomes a really integral story for them. You have to keep those things. And then you've got to find those ways of shifting it ever so slightly. Aeolus's voice. I had a very specific idea of what Aeolus's voice sounds like. I didn't know, as I said, until the lyrics that was Aeolus singing. I don't hate it. I actually think it's a really cute adaptation in the same way we spoke about the Lotus Eaters' voices in the Troy Saga, right? So that's another way that, you know, Rivera-herrans is adding his own spin without taking away the general idea of the Odyssey and these iconic scenes. So the Bag of Winds is still there. We still have the same rules, which is don't open the Bag of Winds. This is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to hold on to it. And the idea is that you're only supposed to open it right when you can see Ithaca off in the distance, and it will just give you that last little bit of wind in order to get home. And the same rules apply here. Same rules also applied in SpongeBob. And as we will see, the other part of this iconic episode is that not only does the Bag of Winds have to not be opened, has to stay sealed, but also if you open it too early, it will just drag you off course, right? So it does the complete opposite of what it's supposed to do. So that's the part that has to stay the same. I think that this is a masterclass in how to do a brilliant adaptation. So let's keep listening.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Never really know who you can trust. If they wanna get the bag open, you gotta say no, sir. Sometimes healing is a must. What?
I love that.
Justifies the means. Friends turn to foes in rivalry. So keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Never really know who you can trust. Never really know who you can trust.
Captain, what's happening? What's trapped in that bag? Something dangerous, friends, we mustn't lag.
It's treasure.
They are such shit stars for this.
Bag!
Let's see what you got.
No, do not! Everybody listen closely. See how this bag is closed? That's how it's supposed to be. This bag has the storm inside. We cannot let the treasure rumor fly.
We'll try.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Never really know who you can trust.
Now they wanna get the bag open so they can have closure.
Sometimes seeking is a must.
Just keep your eyes open. Why are my eyes and my heart and my soul so heavy? Just keep your eyes open. I keep on trying to embrace you both. Why won't you let me? Just keep your eyes open. So much has changed, but I'm the same. Yes, I'm the same. Just keep your eyes open.
Keep your eyes open.
Wake up. Wake up! Odysseus, they're opening the bag! Wake up!
This is what I was talking about. This is the iconic thing. The bag has to be opened.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Never really know who you can
Never
trust.
really know who you can trust.
Where's the storm taking us?
I said to keep the bag closed, but you weren't compliant. If I had to guess, you're headed to the land of the giants.
The land of the giants. What is the land of the giants? That is the land of the Lystrigonians. That is quite a mouthful. Understandably, they do not have their own song in Epic the Musical, because so many people would look at that word and go, the what? Totally get it, because it is a mouthful. I remember the first time that I read the Odyssey and came up to that word, and it's one of those that when you're reading in your head, you're just like, the land of the giants. And you just keep going. Just act like it was never there. Just keep reading. And that was certainly the experience that I had with it, but anyways, the Lystrigonians, we don't have a highlight on them in this version of the Odyssey. We do have them singing in the next song. However, in this version, we don't see them. Again, this is a callback to what I was saying. You've got to find the iconic moments versus the non-iconic moments. In the Odyssey, it's quite a small moment where Odysseus and his men stop at the land of the giants, they stop at the Lystrigonians, and then they find out the Lystrigonians are cannibals. So that's a bit questionable. And they run. They just get on the island, realize what's going on, and they go, probably shouldn't be here. And then get back on the boat and they keep going. And as they're going, the Lystrigonians are throwing rocks at the boats. So it is quite a destructive episode. I love that they are called to in this whole musical, in Epic. I love that they have a highlight. I think that's a really nice way for the people who have read the Odyssey first and foremost to know who they're talking about. But it's also not such an iconic episode that they leave it in there, because I feel like in the modern world, like that's a really bizarre stop to make. It's not as iconic as the Lotus Eaters. Like we love the Lotus Eaters. We love the Sirens. We love Polyphemus. The Lystrigonians can kind of come and go. And I like that they are mentioned here so that we can see them. And we're like, okay, the Lystrigonians are coming. But they're also not harped on in an extended saga because it's not needed, right? In my personal classics opinion, the Lystrigonians are not necessarily needed. So anyways, the last song from the Ocean Saga is the amazing Ruthlessness. This is such a fan favorite, including my own. Let's just listen. So this Poseidon, this like call to the sea god, when I printed off the lyrics, it says that that's sung by the Lystrigonians. I had no idea, absolutely none, that the Lystrigonians were actually mentioned until I printed this off. So I loved that this was mentioned even more in the previous song, because now we have them singing to the sea god. I'm not really sure why, I just like that they are included. Not that I'm not really sure why I like that they were included, but I'm not sure why they're singing to Poseidon, aside from that this was a really clever way for rivera-herrans to have them in the musical without them being a focal point of the narrative.
Poseidon, in all my years of living, it isn't very often that I get pissed off. I try to chill with the waves, but damn, you crossed the line. I've been so gracious, and yet you hurt the son of mine. That's right, the Cyclops you made blind is mine. No.
So, two things to say about this. First off, Poseidon sings, "It isn't very often that I get pissed off." That is a lie. He's a god, he's a Greek god. Greek gods are incredibly sensitive. As the daughter of a Mediterranean woman, my mother is Sicilian, I can say this is just in Mediterranean blood. We are quite sensitive people, and therefore the gods are that, but on steroids. Even in the Greek world, this is a very, very prominent thing, very sensitive. And so this line is just untrue. Poseidon also, we see all of his sass in the Iliad. It's like my favorite. One of my favorite things about the Iliad is that the gods are just so brilliantly personified in that text. And Poseidon is frequently people like, "Hey, Zeus is saying that you shouldn't do this," and he turns around to them and he's like, "Well, tell him I don't care." Like the sibling banter is so good in that book. So this is just not true. This is clearly for the dramatics of the musical, as opposed to the idea of Poseidon not being a dramatic person and not getting pissed off easy. It's almost like, oh, this is the one time. It's not the one time. This happens. It's a thing. I then also wanted to hop to the end of this little part that Poseidon sings, which is, "And yet you hurt the son of mine. That's right, the Cyclops you made blind is mine." This is something I feel like most people outside of classical education don't know, that all of the Cyclopses, all of the Cyclopes, which is the correct plural actually, these are children of Poseidon. So he's obviously going to be mad when Polyphemus is blinded. This is the big thing that happens in the Odyssey as well, in the ancient source, as I have told you in the previous saga, in the previous reaction to the... I don't know why I'm struggling over this. In the previous reaction to the Cyclops saga, I mentioned that this back and forth between Odysseus and Poseidon has to be established because Poseidon very much acts as a barrier to... I mean, there are many barriers to Odysseus coming home, but Poseidon is a major, major, major one. So I just wanted to highlight that most people don't realize that, and it's something that you just have to accept and move on from. Don't question it too much. Just you can't.
I'm left without a choice and without a doubt. Yes, the battle wolves are swimming with the shark now. I gotta make you bleed. I need to see you drown. But before you go, I need to make you learn how ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves. Ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves. Ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves. You are the worst kind of good, 'cause you're not even great. A Greek who rigs a false righteousness, that's what I hate. 'Cause you fight to save lives but won't kill and don't get the job done. I mean, you totally could have avoided all this had you just killed my son. But no.
In this particular version, I'm going to keep highlighting this idea of kill the Cyclops was not part of the ancient story, because it wouldn't have made it any worse or any better if he had done that. Again, there's the whole aspect of the escape, as I mentioned in the Cyclops saga. There is the part of the escape that is not mentioned in the musical, which is so fine, and I think that this is what works really well for the Cyclops saga, is taking this part out, because you could make it more dramatic. Rivera-herrans could put his own spin on it much more. However, in the ancient text, we do have this element of Polyphemus rolling a door in front of the cave entrance, which is a massive boulder. So the men couldn't have killed Polyphemus. Wasn't a possibility, because they needed him to open the door. So they could only blind him so that he would stop killing all of them, which was pretty important at the time. And then they just kind of had to sit tight until Polyphemus opened the door to let the sheep out, and then the men could do their escape. So this is specifically this line and this I was going to say motif, but that's not what a motif is. But this whole storyline, I guess, is really just here for the musical, and it's supposed to add to it. There are layers to this. This idea of, oh, if Odysseus had just changed this one thing, it would be fine. We would have been, you know, easy breezy, beautiful, like no issues here. You know, you and the gods would have been okay because then you would have just killed the Cyclops and that would have been fine. And this will repeat throughout the musical. This musical is much more about these tiny moments that could have changed massive things. You know, we saw it in Just a Man. If Odysseus had stood up and had said, no, I'm not going to throw this teeny tiny baby off of the walls of Troy, I'm not doing that, it would have changed a lot of the trajectory of his character. But he needs to go through these things. He needs to be pushed in this way, in particular in this musical, because he has to make the decision at the end, which again is not a spoiler, to come back to Ithaca and to right the palace's wrongs, is the way I'm going to choose to phrase that, when it comes to the suitors. So in order to get him there, we know that he has a lot of the modern morals, more modern morals is probably how I should phrase that, more modern morals that are infused into his character, and he has to get to the point, and we have to get to the point where we're comfortable with the last saga of this musical, because you cannot change the storyline, the drastic storyline of the Odyssey itself in any adaptation in order for it to be popular. So we're just going about it in a different way, where Odysseus seems to be a very reluctant war hero, I guess is an okay descriptor to talk about this, where he, you know, even when he's saying we went to war, not one of the men died there, he seems to be very much like, I don't want anyone to get hurt. He's really, really reluctant to get involved with Hector's son, even though Zeus is saying, hey, you've got to do this. He then has much more of a choice here, and he chooses to just walk away and to not kill the Cyclops. So he makes a choice rather than it sort of being a logical thing like in the ancient text. And now he's kind of being pushed to, oh, well, actually, if I had done that, this would have been easier. So we're conditioning Odysseus in a completely different way to the ancient sources to get him to the end point. And that's pretty important when it comes to these sorts of lines talking about, you know, if you had just killed Polyphemus, I wouldn't be chasing you. In this version, not in the ancient world.
And now it is finally time to say goodbye. Today you die, unless of course you apologize for my son's pain and all his cries.
Poseidon, we meant no harm. We only hurt him to disarm him. We took no pleasure in his pain. We only wanted to escape.
This is brilliant writing, this bit.
The line between naivety and hopefulness is almost invisible, so close your hearts. The world is dark and ruthlessness is die.
What have you done? When does a ripple become a tidal wave?
43 left under your command.
So Odysseus does lose all of his men, as we know. He will end up losing every single one of them by the time he comes back to Ithaca. When it comes to this countdown, again, I'm just highlighting this as a difference here. We do not have a countdown in the ancient text. Odysseus tells us the story of how he got to the Phaeacians, where he's explaining this. You guys can watch my video talking about the unreliable narrator that Odysseus is, and he tells us of how he loses all of his men at sea. Now, in this musical, I think it's a really nice addition to have the countdown, and when we're really aware of the numbers, we know how it's dwindling, and we are actually aware of the loss, whereas in the Odyssey, it kind of goes from all of them to none of them. We do have, you know, a mention of ship numbers every so often. So with the Lystragonians, we get a ship number. Oh, they then shot down how many ships with these rocks. So I lost X, Y, and Z. And you can kind of do then the mental maths yourself if you so wish. As you guys know, if you listen to the Troy Saga, I love to do the mental maths when it comes to literature for no reason other than I thoroughly enjoy taking something apart in that way, taking texts apart in that way. This is why I love I love my job, and I love being a classicist as opposed to an archaeologist or anything else with regard to the ancient world. I just want to be left with the literature so that I can do all of this really nerdy stuff because I love it. So I think the countdown of the numbers of men throughout this musical is a brilliant addition by Rivera-herrans, because it is actually really infusing the listener with the weight of these decisions, right? Every time Odysseus makes a bad decision, even though he thinks it's a good decision, he has to deal with the immediate consequences. And so I love the idea that now we've gone from 600 to 43 men. 43 left under your command. That is, the number has dwindled significantly. So we're aware that just because he didn't kill Polyphemus, we are now in this predicament. So hats off to Rivera-herrans for adding in a countdown. I really liked that.
Does a man become a monster?
I am your darkest moment, the monster that always draws near. Any last words?
All I gotta do is open this bag.
What?
Remember how earlier we spoke about this bag being iconic? You gotta open it, it's gotta be so this is, again, we're just coming back to this bag thing, right? So we've had the bag introduced, we're now having the bag disappear, it's sort of had us go all over the place, and this is what the bag operates as in the ancient text and in SpongeBob the movie, which is my favorite, sorry Epic, but it will always be my favorite adaptation of the Odyssey. So here we go, we have this return to this iconic part of the book. But in saying that, that is the end of the Ocean Saga. Again, to just kind of wrap this up, I do want to keep reiterating, it's important for us to keep adapting myths and keep adapting the ancient world. And the difference between making a good adaptation like Epic and one that ends up not being popular, or one that people are really divided over, is the artist's ability to understand the elements that need to stay the same and the elements that need to change in order for them to put their own spin on it. And this is something that I'm going to be really excited to see when the Christopher Nolan film comes out, because this is literally filmed in January. So it's filmed and uploaded in January of 2026. I have no idea what Christopher Nolan is going to do this summer when he releases his Odyssey. And so with all of these things, now that you guys have been listening to this, hopefully when you go to the cinema, you'll be aware, like, okay, well, the bag is really important. Okay, well, Polyphemus, the skeletal structure of that is really important. And hopefully when you go to the cinema, you'll be able to kind of compare those. You can compare them to Epic as well and see how did Christopher Nolan do it differently to how Rivera-herrans did it, and so on and so forth. So I think this is kind of a really fun exercise for us to do, so that now when you guys who are watching this go out into the world, we can kind of see, okay, well, there is always room. There is always, always, always room. And I will say this until I'm blue in the face. There is always room to speak to a current audience, to add your own spin to something, and to make it relatable to the people of today, whilst also sticking to the ancient story that we have that has been loved for so many generations. So in saying all of that, we are now at the end of the Ocean Saga, and I'm going to wrap this up, which means that next time you guys can join me for even more Epic the Musical. I will, again, still be doing this in saga form, so they are longer videos for the channel, and that way we can get through this quicker than if I do it song by song or a couple of songs by a couple of songs. It's saga by saga. So don't forget to subscribe so that you do not miss the release of the next episode, and I'll be seeing you guys there.